Welcome back to a brand new episode of Your Wealth and Beyond. I'm your host, Andrew Raffel. And today we've got a special guest live in the Dream Plan Retire studio. Want to welcome everybody. Dala Al-Fuwaires, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Thank you. I'm doing good. How are you doing?
We are doing wonderful. And listeners, as you know, the Your Wealth and Beyond podcast is about helping entrepreneurs succeed, find their vision, build a dream company and a dream culture. And very excited today to learn your background and how you built a wonderful firm that is really known here in the Valley for some of the most iconic spaces. CEO, visionary, principal designer of House of Form. So we're going to dig into your background today and learn how you've built this tremendous company with a great culture. But then also I want to learn more about how you look at your work on a day-to-day basis, the spaces you build, the stories that you help your clients understand, and really learn all those facets, and then find out a little bit of what the next couple of years are going to look like.
Yeah, I'm excited to share.
So, little backstory for you. How did you wind up in this place? I know House of Form is now 8 to 9 years old.
Yeah. Wow, you guys have done your research.
Doing a little research there, huh, Dal?
Yes, 8 years.
So, your backstory in regards to how you wound up at this place.
Yeah.
How do we get here?
Okay, I'll give you quick milestones that kind of have led me here. So growing up, my parents used to host a lot of parties at home, and they would be fun with a lot of activities for the guests. And at one of these parties was a fortune teller. And so at the age of 10, I had this Indian fortune teller tell me my fortune, and he said that I was going to be an architect. So he kind of planted the seed that I would enter this world. And then simultaneously, I was living in Bahrain at the time, and we were in a compound, which is kind of like a gated community. But there's a lot of expatriates that live there from all over the world. And I had this wild idea that came out of nowhere that I would want to host a bazaar for the entire community. And I brought all the young kids together, tried to find out what each of their skill sets were, what they could bring to the table, and we hosted a bazaar for the compound at 11 years of age. So those two kind of starting points, I think, paved the path for really building an interest in leadership paired with wanting to build beautiful spaces. And
also some inspiration came from your mom and grandmother, who you saw as, women that were leaders and, following their passions as well.
Yeah, they were actually badass women. They were both in broadcasting, and both were the first female voices to be heard on radio in their respective countries that they were in. So yeah, they paved a path. I think they were a little disappointed that I didn't choose broadcasting, but here I am on a mic.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to say. Mom, we made it.
Yeah.
And so for you also, growing up in, not here in the United States, but was travel something that has been an inspiration for you in how you build your spaces?
100%, yes. I see myself as like a third world child. I can't call a single place home. The world is my home. I'm so accustomed to jumping around and visiting new places. And yes, it definitely impacts the way I think, and design.
And so House of Form started with just your vision of and passion for what you want to bring to spaces, but you got a degree at ASU and also in Purdue as well. Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
So how did you get? We always look back to what was our first client 7-8 years ago?
Yeah.
Who was that? How did you build that?
Yeah, great story. So I had already been in the industry for about 15 years, and so the day that I decided I would start the business, I locked myself up in our home office and reached out to absolutely everybody I had crossed paths with professionally, and just let them know that I am on my own now, and I would love either referrals, advice, or anything they can offer that can kind of help boost my confidence in this decision. And that was how I started. My first client is actually now my Vistage chair. Vistage is a peer-to-peer advisory group. Yeah.
And what was that project?
They owned Ticket Force, which is a ticketing company, as well as Thrive, a female co-working space. So.
And so a lot of your spaces, when I think of like Kala or 36 Below, they all have a little bit of that same warmth to it.
Yeah.
But, as you look out and you're working with a client and you're helping them understand what this space is going to look like. So for the listeners and viewers that maybe aren't in the interior design space or aren't in the hospitality industry, but when they go to a restaurant or a bar or, a commercial property and they just have that feeling like this feels right. How do you work with your clients to start from the beginning and try to help them understand what their vision is and then put it in action?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think it all starts with our kickoff or our initial conversations with the client. We like to avoid labeling a design style. So instead, we put our clients through this exercise that allows them to tell us how they want the space to feel. We have this deck of cards that we call House of Cards, and they're just filled with various adjectives. And we hand this deck of cards to them, and we say, we're going to have a yes pile and a no pile. Yes, you want your space to feel this way. No, you don't, but you have to use intuition. It's 1 second, no more. And what ends up happening is we design a space that's based on feeling versus aesthetics. And of course, you end up with a beautiful space, but it's filled with feeling because that's where it started.
Yeah, and and those don't. It doesn't happen overnight, though, right? It's back and forth.
Yes, yeah. It's a long process. I mean, that's our starting point, and we're massaging that throughout the entire process. I like to describe what we do as experience design versus interior design because we're really thinking about all the senses that are activated when you're in a space. We'll oftentimes put together a playlist for the project too while we're presenting so that everyone can get a feel of what it feels like to be physically in the space. Does a playlist feel right? If it doesn't, well, then maybe we need to revisit that because that kind of captures the vibe we're trying to attain.
Yeah, music is such an important intersection of making someone feel comfortable too.
Yes.
Do you also, when you're working with clients, do you try to get them, because a lot of them probably have seen some of your spaces and they're like, I want this, I want that, but do you almost try to get them to be a blank slate and be like, pretend you didn't see this space because we want this to be yours?
Yeah, I'm actually pretty bold in my response. I will say I'm never going to repeat another client's work, just like I would never repeat your work. So let's get to know you. There's something special about you that I can build a beautiful space out of. And that's our starting point. Yeah.
So from the beginning, as you left and started your own firm, do you think back on some of the trials and tribulations that you had in those early days that you can help us understand how you got through that?
Yeah, I think being vulnerable and open to recognizing what you don't know and not being afraid to share that with people is probably the greatest tool and the greatest skill set you can have. I would kind of evaluate my month to month or year to year and say, what went well, what didn't go well, where am I lacking? What do I not know that I need to seek assistance for? And it's usually working with a coach one-on-one, finding a mentor to help me through it. So really just being vulnerable about what you don't know.
And with the coach, did you have that from the get-go, or was that something that you added in as the company started growing?
Yeah, it's actually something I introduced from the get-go. I think because of my background in education, I don't know if we're going to get to that, but I actually taught design courses at ASU for several years after getting a master's from Purdue. I think I just value education. I know that's the path to growth. And so I sought something out annually.
Yeah, and that's so important, listeners, as you're growing your business. You can't do it on your own. So whether you take that step where you have a coach, Vistage, Entrepreneurs Organization, putting yourself with other like-minded individuals that are going to hold you to the fire and help you, get out of your own head too. Because sometimes as business owners, we get caught up in a lot of the day-to-day and we lose focus on the vision.
Yeah. A lot of the work is actually psychological. The works that I did in the early years, maybe year 1 to 5, was just breaking down barriers that I had built for myself in my mind. Head trash is what I call it. But yeah, that was the biggest challenge I had to work through.
And did you have employees right away, or was that something that you were just all on you and all the hats you had to wear in the beginning?
Yeah, I think I was on my own for about 6 months, and then I hired my first employee. They were part-time at the time, but by year one, I've had full-time team members.
Yeah. And so what's the mission if you were to, if somebody doesn't know House of Form at all,
Yeah.
never been to any of your spaces,
Yeah.
what would you say to somebody that asks you, what is your core mission? What are you guys doing?
Oh, well, I love to design spaces for clients that brings them a lot of success, but also allows them to capture this feeling that we're all trying to attain. We just never verbalize it. I think a lot of us have good memories around the dinner table, whether it was lunch or dinner. That's really where you're most intimate, where you feel most loved, where you're having meaningful conversations. And dining at a bar or a restaurant or being in a hotel lobby is exactly that feeling multiplied over and over again. And so that's really what I want to achieve, is to be able to give that gift to people over and over again.
It's beautiful. And once a space is up and you go through that whole process there, are you guys still boots on the ground a year later? Are you going into the space and making sure things are still dialed in, or is the client gone and you're moving on to the next project?
No, clients, once they're in, they're our family forever.
Okay.
So
They're stuck with you?
They're stuck with us, yes. Whether they like it or not, they are. I think one of the things we aim to do is, after the business has been operating for 6 months to a year, if the client's open to it, we ask to have a meeting with them on site and just find out what's working well and what isn't working well. There's certain things we just can't plan for because human behavior is so unpredictable. And we end up learning quite a bit just by evaluating spaces a year later. Companies also like to do a little refresh every couple of years, and that's when they're calling us back. So, yeah.
And you're starting to expand now, so I know Vegas is in the mix?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Is that scary?
That was so scary.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, Vegas is a hard market.
I can imagine, yeah.
And it almost feels like I'm starting year one in another state. And I'm okay with it because I know it's going to be worth our efforts. The reason I chose Vegas is it's the hub of hospitality in the United States. It's where, the biggest, boldest, most dynamic hospitality spaces are, whether it's a bar, restaurant, hotel. And it's ever changing too. The 7-year rule of remodeling doesn't apply there. It's every 2 years, and it's exciting. So I will fight for our place there.
And so how do you then, from the standpoint of, you've got your team here, you do have clients all over the country, right? But like now, is Vegas going to be an office, or are you guys just going there in a couple of days in the month and trying to build relationships?
So we actually have a remote office space there that we use when we land there. And I at least go once a month to meet with clients, to check on projects. So, yeah.
Yeah. And as a female-owned business, one of the areas I know you're passionate about is helping other, CEOs, visionaries, entrepreneurs that are, doesn't matter the industry, but like, what are some of the, from your standpoint, what you've learned over the years, but some of the things that you instill as you're trying to teach other entrepreneurs that are, women-owned businesses? What can we learn from your, both successes and mistakes?
Yeah.
And how do we get more and more women? As I have a daughter that's 18. I'd love her to be a business owner at one point. So, what are some of the things that you're doing to help instill that passion in others?
Yeah. So I think it starts with finding out what your reasoning or passion is, your why, essentially. What is your interest that can motivate you on the hard days and feel wonderful on the great days? So starting there. I think building systems and processes is probably my biggest skill set.
Okay.
But I feel like integrating that into the business in day one and operating as a corporation of 100 people, even if you're a team of one, is the way to build a really malleable and successful business.
And on the scope of Free, you built it looks like a wonderful culture within your firm. What are some of those things? How's House of Form develop that culture with
Yeah.
the, employees that you have and helping them succeed and grow and give them opportunities?
Yeah. This one's hard to answer because I think it's a lot of little things, but I think above everything else, I always remind my team to show up as themselves, to never be anyone else, and to be very vulnerable about what they know and what they don't know. And together we can help each other. We're a team. I've always got their back, even if they've made a mistake. They do not need to worry about that. And I think that's the foundation of being a part of an organization that has a mission that they work towards together. And then I think there's things that I've integrated into our systems maybe that really support that. So everybody on the team taps into profit sharing. So depending on how we all perform is how everybody gets rewarded. And they feel like they have a stake in the company. They're all mini entrepreneurs, if you will. Yeah.
And then I was doing some research too. So it looks like you guys sometimes do a little retreat, a hospitality retreat.
Yes.
So you were just in Amsterdam.
Yes, that's correct.
So what happens there? You bring some of the team, and you guys are going on, in a sense, team building, but visionary, and trying to, in this case, Amsterdam, trying to get some motivation.
Yes, all the above. So this started maybe in year 3 of business, where I had this idea of going to visit hospitality spaces and study them as a consumer versus a designer. Because when we have our design goggles on, we're looking at things very differently. But if we're experiencing spaces, then we're really starting to understand what it means to be in a space and act in a space. So our first trip was actually to Australia. COVID hit, so it kind of interrupted this big idea that I had for us to make this an annual thing. But as soon as we were all able to travel again, we picked it back up and went to San Diego, and this year was Amsterdam. So yeah, the entire design team gets to fly out. We have a very regimented agenda of bar, restaurant, hotel, retail, and we're really just experiencing those spaces. So we're either having a cocktail or eating lunch or asking the front desk for a tour of the hotel. And we're starting to expand our imagination beyond our computer screens. And it's pretty incredible to see how it impacts designers when we come back to the office.
Because some of them maybe have never been to Europe before, never been to
Yes.
Australia.
Yeah.
And especially Amsterdam, just the architecture there and the way that they're so focused on the aesthetics and the design. And it's just every square block can be something different.
Yes.
I was there a few years ago. We stayed at the Pulitzer Hotel, which
Oh,
is
yes.
a very cool
Yeah,
hotel
yeah.
that, you walk in there and just like, wow, there's attention to detail is just
Yeah.
so perfect.
Yeah, yeah. Did you go to the gallery space there
Yes.
by chance?
Yeah. So what's the next? Do you guys plan that in advance, or is it surprise for the team?
Okay, so I think next year what I'm going to do is a draw. So we may all enter a place of interest.
Okay.
I don't know. That sounds too risky because it's also budget driven, right?
Yes.
Like where can we go? What can we afford? I'm not sure, but I've got my eyes on Mexico City and
Yes.
San Miguel. I feel like those would be great places to experience and are in really good alignment with the type of projects we're receiving right now.
I just had some friends got back from San Miguel, and it looks amazing.
Yeah.
Definitely got, and the food and just the whole culture and everything. Same with Mexico
Yeah.
City too. I've not been to either one.
Yeah. You
So-
can join us if you'd like.
That's, you guys heard it. I'll throw in my hat there. Would you, and I know pandemic's now 4 years going, but you had mentioned and that obviously your trip stopped for the retreats, but you as a business owner, 5 years in the business at that point, probably getting really good traction, but then that hits and it's like, it just throws all businesses off,
Yeah.
but especially yours that is so centered around all the things that we didn't know for that period of time
Yes.
is going to be here.
Yes.
So as a business owner, CEO, and trying to keep the team aligned and keep the business going, what did that look like for you
Yeah.
in those few months before we knew what was going to happen?
Yeah. So at that time, we were primarily focused on food and beverage, so bars and restaurants, and that was one of the first industries to take a big hit. Simultaneously, I had the thought several months prior that I should diversify a little bit into adjacent markets, and that's when we started getting into hotel and multifamily work. So thankfully, someone was watching over us, but during that time, even though F&B slowed down slightly, multifamily and hotel work kind of picked up. And there were also a lot of people that knew there would be an end to this and decided to kind of jump in and do the work anyway while the
Yeah.
world was freaking out.
That's great. Staying positive and optimistic. And I think too, for Arizona, we were, a lot less hit, and it
Yeah.
was somewhat as business as usual compared to some other states
Yes.
and countries. So that was
Yes.
one of the fortunate parts in that.
Yes.
Do you have like you think of your projects as just like, with animals or kids, and parents may have their favorite. Do you ever do you have like, I mean, we don't have to tell anybody on it, but do you have your, like, is there like, do you have like your favorite projects?
It's going to be the next one I work on.
Yeah, that's a good answer. Very politically correct there. I like that. But so every project, they're just like you. Yeah, like,
They're all
yeah,
different. Yeah. And I get to know the clients on such a personal level that there's something special about each one of them. And it's hard for me to pick.
And we talked a little earlier about music. So is that something that once you get the space, are you guys there helping them understand what music will fill the space to keep the energy where it needs to be?
Yeah. So one of the things we do is gift a playlist that we develop right after we've built our concept design direction. And I think some clients have used it to kind of build off of. Some just enjoy it as a playlist to listen to at the gym. But yeah, we do try to put our stamp on things that we believe make the experience more holistic.
And can our listeners, viewers, can they find this playlist on Spotify, or is this a secret list that nobody has?
No, you can actually find it. So you can go to any of our project names, followed by House of Form, and you should be able to find the playlist. Right. It's also on our website.
It's on the website, which you'll be able to see under the show notes there for sure. And I did see, actually, as I was doing some research, I did see that there was, I saw that list was there, and one of the ones that I was looking at there. Interesting. So we talked about, or you said systems are a big thing for you. What are some of those systems that you've built into the company to help everybody succeed and stay on the same page, and having, 5 or 6 different designers? How do we stay focused?
Yeah. Okay. This is, I have a layered answer to this. So how this all came about was after I read the book Clockwork by Mike Michalowicz. There was a kind of a challenge in the book that said, leave the office. I forget the length of time. I did a week the first time, and do not be available to your team, and have them record all the roadblocks that they came across in your absence, that required your presence to solve the problem. So I did that. I left. It was very stressful, and it was hard for me not to check into my email.
So you didn't check email, everything, you're just shut off. You're like on the moon.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I had to, because I knew that we would be able to discover challenges that we would need to resolve. And so I came back, met with each individual on the team, and they gave me their list of, I can do this because you weren't here, or I couldn't access this because you weren't here. And that's when I began fixing the problems. And that's when systems were developed. So anytime something could be recorded or systemized so that it could be passed on to anyone at any time, I took on that challenge. And I would do it yearly. So this never stops. Even in year 7, I would go away for 2 weeks. That was my longest vacation. And I did not check in at work at all. And the goal is for the team members to be able to do the same. So the systems are not just important to the organization, but to each individual on the team. Yeah.
That's great. And for the getting into some of the details there, did you use like Loom or Trainual, or what's the tech stack that you used to record?
It's a combination of a bunch of things. We're using Notion currently, and that's for our administrative staff on the team. Anytime we have a request for something, we will just link the guide that is available on Notion. We also have an internal guide at House of Form for the designers specifically that is a step-by-step process. This one, I would say, is tied to systems and is probably one of the most important things, but anytime a new designer joins the team, we don't throw them into a project immediately. We actually give them a 2-week time frame with a mock project assigned to them, and they have to go through the entire House of Form process, which is also documented in our guidebook. And that allows them to figure out any kinks or any challenges they may have in the deliverables that they're putting together. That way, when they do start working with a client, we've worked through that already.
Yeah, that's great. And so when somebody comes on board, do they have a path for continued, mobility upwards in the company? Or so how have you set that up with your interior designers?
Absolutely. So I do quarterly reviews, but they're self-evaluations rather than me evaluating the team. And they have been so beneficial. So the team comes to the table with, 3 things they think they've succeeded at, 3 things that they believe they need to work on. And then I do have a series of questions just as a check-in on their mental health and wellness and passion for what they're doing. I also ask them what they want to work on, what's their dream project, and I start to seek that for them. Of course, if it's in alignment with House of Form and hospitality. But yes, I mean, just doing that allows them the self-motivation to grow, and I can give them the tools to assist them in that growth.
And are you doing that for yourself as well? Are you doing quarterly reviews of your?
That's a good question. No, I'm not.
Okay. All right. Well, let's start right now. Yeah. Let's start now. But no, because I don't do that either.
Yeah.
I guess when I go to my EO meetings, that helps, with the forum group. But
yes,
that might be something that is beneficial for both of us.
I think so.
Maybe
You're
not
right.
quarterly, but every 6 months.
Yeah.
Or have somebody that you trust that your team can tell you what you're doing really well.
Yes.
What you could work on.
So I did this once, and it was actually very hard, and I need to do it again, but I called it a reverse review. Mm-hmm. And right after I reviewed the team, I had them review me individually. And I said, I will not respond or speak at all, just to give them the space and comfort to be able to share whatever they needed to share. It was incredible, and it made major changes to the business. Yeah. So you kind of just reminded me that it's maybe time to do it again.
It's perfect timing, too, for that. And as you've grown now with yourself, your roles, are you had been the principal designer.
Yeah.
Are you still in the weeds? And I know it's probably hard to get out of it, but have you given away some of the day-to-day on these projects?
Yes, I have, but that was a journey. Because as creatives, you tie that work to your identity so closely that when you have to step away for some time to be a leader for your team and to help grow the business, you do have to step away. And this happened last year, actually 7 years into the business, where I had an identity crisis and I had to step away and say, whoa, I'm not designing anymore. Who am I then? What am I doing? But I kind of channeled or redirected my creativity into, well, then how do I creatively build a beautiful, healthy business, an amazing culture, great systems that just support our everyday wellness and happiness. And someone also gave me advice, a really good friend and client of mine, who said, there's going to be seasons. This might be your CEO season. But once you get everything in order and in a good place, next year might be your back to interior design season.
Especially with Vegas in the cards now.
Yes.
You might need to get back boots on the ground.
Right.
And it is good, with being able to, sometimes as CEOs, if we get out of the inner workings of what we built, then we lose touch on things.
Yes.
And so I think that also can bring you some inspiration too.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you won't be doing it alone anyway. You guys do it like a team approach? Do the designers work in pods?
Yeah. So we meet twice a week with each designer, and it's to review design and to brainstorm. So we have plenty of those opportunities. And I'm involved at that level where I'm high level influencing design direction and concept. But my team is definitely doing all the work, and they're so incredible. So yes, twice a week we have those opportunities. And I think the better ideas come from open conversations with team members versus working in a silo.
Yeah. And the space you guys are in now, how long have you been there?
A year and a half now.
Okay. And so you put your own blood, sweat, and tears into making that space.
Yes, I
You
did.
treated yourself like a client.
I did. Yes. So I decided to design the space to feel, we're actually not allowed to call it an office. It's a design studio. And we designed it to be reminiscent of our hospitality spaces. So each space within our working space is likened to an area on a floor plan in a restaurant. So our conference room is more of a private dining room, and it feels as such. I hope you can visit soon so you could experience this. We have a lounge area, which is like our cocktail lounge. Our kitchen is more like a bar, like a service bar, and it feels that way. And it ends up becoming a portfolio piece, but also a place that feels very aligned with who we are as a business.
Yeah, and that's a great showcase too, for not only having your team feel great about coming into work, but then for clients, or just they don't have to necessarily be a client, but it's ultimately having that as a good marketing piece for you guys.
Yeah.
Awesome. Where is the location?
We're on 7th and Camelback in the Melrose
so right in the
District.
heart of it. Yeah, that's a beautiful area
Yeah.
there. When we look at some of the I know I was doing some research on, you had indicated it's like some of your 3 cornerstones, like with determination and grit and those type of things. So like what are those things that you utilize on a day-to-day to stay motivated and to keep focusing on the vision to help keep the company growing and the opportunities flowing for the employees?
Yeah. Ooh, that's a good question. I think the answer changes every year. And in this season of life, I would say my motivation is to be a profound example for women that look like me or believe in the same things I believe. I remember when I was starting, I didn't have many women that looked like me that could kind of validate that I could achieve something. And our mind plays tricks on us, right? Like if you don't see the example, then you think it's impossible. And so my motivation now is to be that example for people that think it's impossible.
And when you made the leap back in 2015 to, was it
16? Yeah.
So there's that head trash going on, but did you took the leap of faith? Your husband helped you kind of jump off that ledge and
He
say you can do
did.
that? Was
He
that
did.
the kind of the two of you? Did you have anybody else that was saying that you can do this?
Yeah. Can I back up a little bit how this all started? Because entrepreneurship was never on the horizon for me or something I believed I could do. But I actually had a job, a pretty significant role, and I happened to come across the gender pay gap. And it really upset me. And that was kind of the first fire that said, well, I can't let that happen to me again. And I can't let it happen to any of the women or men, for that matter, in my community. Like there should be fairness in the way that we're compensated. And that was the fire in me. And then my husband kind of said it out loud, and I needed to hear it. But he said, you just built design departments for other companies. What makes you think you can't build it for yourself? And that gave me the confidence I needed.
Love that. Yeah. And some of the employees, have some of them been with you since the beginning?
Yes. Our longest standing employees, 7 years.
That's great.
Yeah.
Doing something right.
Thank you. I hope so. Yeah.
So when we think about, entrepreneurship and growing a company, obviously there's expansion now in Vegas. What is it that, what is your vision that you work day to day on? Like, where do you have a 5-year vision of where you want it to go?
I do. I have a 3-year, which is being the go-to hospitality firm in the United States. And then the 5-year goal is to be the global go-to. I would really love to expand our portfolio around the world. Do
you have any international clients yet?
We've had a few. We had a project in Japan. We had a project in Kuwait. And I'd love to see far more than that.
And those type of projects, do you have to travel there?
Yes.
Yeah.
I've
So
traveled for both. Yeah.
That's great. So it gets you your passion back to traveling.
That's right.
And I assume that they're finding you just through the different, whether it's through your IG account and things like that. But how do you find like somebody in Japan? How do they find you?
That was actually a Google search, which means we're doing something right with SEO. I had no idea we could have that reach. We have a lot of referral-based clientele. That's probably the majority of where our work is. And I think just by way of our portfolio, as it grows, it becomes kind of the talking piece that drives people to us.
Yeah, and the website is well designed to make it flows, so it's very easy.
Thank you.
To determine out all the things that you're doing, and then being able to, hone in on different projects. But just the aesthetic of it is very, very nice.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
It's a work in progress always, right?
Always. I have to give credit though to Donald Miller, Brand Story. He is kind of the person that influenced the way I think about telling our story to the world. And I think that comes through in our website.
Yeah, that's great. The local?
Donald Miller?
Yeah.
No, I don't know where he's based, but he's got several books, and a lot of them are around brand story and storytelling of businesses. Yeah.
So beyond your passion of work, what do you do to stay sane outside of work?
Let's see. I bought a 1979 ranch house 2 years ago. almost done working through it, but I can always find a new project. So that's what keeps me excited.
And this is your house that you live
This is
in?
our house that we live in, yeah. So that keeps me busy. I love to read. I try to not read my business books on the weekend and kind of switch over to something a little more on the pleasure side. But I love to read, and dining out is my thing.
And can you turn it off though? Like when you're going to a restaurant, going to a new hotel, or do you not turn it off because you enjoy it and you're looking at it,
Yeah.
unlike how I would look at it, which is like, okay, I'm just going to go and maybe not see all the things that you see.
Yeah.
How do you stop working when you go to dinner or you're just having drinks with friends?
I know, it's hard. I mean, I guess I am working,
Yeah.
but I don't consider it work because I do enjoy it. I'll very quickly, I think I've also built the skill set of being able to look around and in 60 seconds be able to pick up on 1,000 little pieces of details that I can take back to the team, snap a few photos, and then I'm fully present with the people I'm with.
And you know, like in an instant too, in that 60 seconds, if you go to a new space or it's a new hotel, one that you didn't do, or new restaurant, and it's just like,
Yeah.
this doesn't feel right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm not quick to judge. I actually always look at what I admire first, and then I'll start to break down what's not working well and what would I do differently. So it's always critical and self-evaluative.
Did you work on Global at all?
No, we did not.
Because it has a similar warmth, a lot of,
Yeah.
like, how do you think did they do a good job on
I
some of
mean, he has built a new industry for hotels that are driven by F&B versus the hotel stay. It's incredible, and I'm really proud that it came out of the state of Arizona.
just right in our neighborhood here?
Yeah.
Very impressive. You go in there, you don't feel like you're in Phoenix.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
which is a lot of your spaces as well.
Yes.
And even like I 36 Below, I don't think I've been, maybe it was the tiki place before.
Oh,
but,
yes. Yeah.
But like that's a small space.
Very
and
small.
to make it what you've done in there and to just, it feels bigger, it feels warm. But
Yeah.
that looks like a really cool
Yeah.
project that you got to be proud of.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Small spaces are actually my favorite. Give me 500 square feet and I can work magic. in
How big
that
is this
space.
space? This is like probably 250.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll work. Lexi works some magic in here.
It looks fantastic.
Design forward.
That's what it used to be called. It was rebranded to Off the Menu.
Okay.
Yes.
So what's off the menu?
Oh, okay. So we actually just got our 501c3 for it after running it for 5 years, but it is a local competition that we host for F&B innovators in the Valley. We basically, as House of Form, we put together a board of directors of experts in the hospitality space. And it could be various people like it could be development or social media or branding or, I mean, any skill set that you would need to kind of help build a very successful business. And so we open up this competition, people pitch their existing or new concepts, and then our board of directors selects a winner that they provide mentorship to. Next year, we're going to take this national after being local to Arizona for 5 years. So we're very excited about that.
And how detailed do they have to get in as they're presenting out?
Yeah, we have a series of questions that we request of them to answer. And once they've been named a semifinalist, then they put together a video introduction to them, their brand, and answer additional questions. And that's how the board of directors gets to really know each of these individuals. There's so much talent in the Valley. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's changed a lot. I've been out here since '01. It's just tremendous what's happened.
Yeah.
So then the winners, they get, it's a little bit of money, but mainly also expertise from teams like you.
No money yet, but next
Okay.
year, yes, that is the goal. What they do get is access to 10 board members who provide them with mentorship in their designated areas of expertise. What ends up happening, like Joe Johnston was on our board last year, and one of the winners, we kind of give them parameters of 2 to 3 hours of a gift from the mentor to you. Everybody goes above and beyond. Joe Johnston spent 10 hours with the winner and just showed her around his entire development in Agritopia, and they had lunch and then they had dinner and then they went into their family's house, and those are the beautiful things we're seeing happening in the program. Yeah.
And then to watch that individual take that knowledge and then grow,
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna have some pretty awesome stories there.
Yes.
What led you to what inspired you to develop that
Yeah.
501(c)(3)?
Yeah. So, meaning now or initially starting?
Initially, what was the beginning? Yeah, what was the
So
genesis?
because I was just starting out on my own, I wanted to be able to work on more food and beverage concepts. And this was a way for me to offer my work pro bono to a lot of people. What ended up happening that I had never anticipated is a lot of the applicants that were not named the winner ended up coming back to us and hiring us for our design services. So yeah, it was really just to be exposed and introduced to as many people in that industry as possible.
It's very similar to the story of State 48, who we had Michael on, and similar concept. He's doing it because of the passion of bringing entrepreneurs together, but has built that into a brand that then is associated with his apparel company.
Yes.
And it kind of just works, both ways.
Yes, I do see a lot of parallels with Mike and what he's done, which is incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, the entrepreneur series that he has, it's just, for the passion that you have, that they have to helping, especially those that have the vision and don't know how to go from the dream to reality. So any little bit of help, and especially bringing in some of the power hitters that are spending their time, that is so valuable. And just the experiences that we've shared as, as business owners to help them grow. It's invaluable. You can't get that in any textbook. And a lot of times it costs a lot of money because you end up like, your business doesn't succeed for a few years. So this will help them stay on that good curve there. So an avid reader, on the business side, any books that you would recommend to the listeners that have, held true to you?
Yes, absolutely. Can I start with one that you probably won't believe that I'm just starting to read 8 years in, but it's Traction by Gino Wickman.
It takes some, you gotta definitely be dialed in for that.
Ready for it? Okay, good. I felt bad because I felt like maybe I should have read this 4 years ago. A recent book I read is Unreasonable Hospitality. By Will Guidara. He's the owner of 11 Madison Park in New York. And the book is about how to deliver unreasonable hospitality. And I found it so inspiring, and it actually prompted me to change a lot of the things that we do for our clients, which we were really putting all of our energy toward their project. But time and attention also needed to be given to the clients that we communicate with. And it was just a very inspiring book. I also love Mike Michalowicz. Profit First is something that I live by to this day. It's how a non-finance individual can learn to manage their finances really well. So that's been helpful.
And for the listeners and viewers that haven't read that book, what is the quick summary of that? Just so you can give you're not giving financial advice, but what you do.
Have you read the book?
I know the book, but I haven't yet.
Okay. It's, I would say the easiest way to describe it is it teaches you how to manage your business accounts without having to have accounting knowledge. It kind of gives you there's a chart that gives you a breakdown of your annual revenue and what the distribution amongst different accounts should be. Generally, the distributions are your operating expenses, your take-home salary, whether it's one individual or several owners in the company, tax, profit, and I think there's one more that I am not abiding by, because you can kind of massage it based on your business. But the general goal is that you are aiming to pay yourself first before you start paying to operate your business. And it just makes you a lot more lean and thoughtful and profitable.
Yeah, it's creating those habits, which are so important, because so many business owners, they aren't good with numbers, and they may have good monies coming in, but then they're spending all out, places. So, but great book, and just sticking to a plan that works for each individual. And, we always teach on our end here is that the business owner, even if they're creative or if they have to know their books, they have to spend that time to learn. You don't have to do the books, but know what's happening, because otherwise it becomes a situation where if you don't have the clear-cut understanding of what your numbers are, you're not going to have the success that you could otherwise.
That is correct. Yes.
So any last bit of words of wisdom for inspiring entrepreneurs? And I know you've shared a lot already.
Yeah. So. I'm trying to think of what would be maybe my top. I think it starts with passion, really. You hear it all the time, but if you're not working on something you absolutely love, then you're going to lose traction along the way because there's going to be some hard days. There's going to be some great days, but a lot of hard ones.
So the passion and going back to that, knowing your why.
Correct.
Why do you get up each day?
Yes. Why do you do what you do? And also lean on others for help. There's no shame. You don't have to appear big right off the bat or ever even. But being able to say, I know I'm not great at this. Who can I ask for help? And people are more than willing to help, especially when you're honest and vulnerable about what you need.
Yeah, and especially as now you've had success and you had people to help you get there, but now look at you wanting to give back. And so there's so many that individuals look and say, well, they're not going to talk to me. They don't, but they've maybe climbed that mountain of success and they want to give back. And sometimes they just need to be asked.
Right.
So that's great advice.
Yeah. Thank you.
Can't do it on your own.
No, you cannot.
Cannot do it on your own.
No.
Well, this has been awesome. I know we could probably spend another hour going through some aesthetics and things like that, but thank you for taking time in your busy day and talking to us and the listeners. And, we'll continue watching the growth of House of Form and all the other things that I know are going to come from that.
Thank you.
I hope to see this international side of the business growing over these next few years. So continued success in doing what you're doing. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
All the show notes will be below the video and in whatever podcast platform that you're on, and all the ways and how you can learn more about, if you don't know, of House of Form, all the clients, all the projects that they've done. And if you do have a project that you want to talk to the team on, you'll be able to learn how to go about that and learning and doing a discovery call with their team. So Dala, thank you very much. Have a wonderful rest of the year. And thank you for the time. And stay tuned later this month for a brand new episode of Your Wealth and Beyond. Happy planning, everybody. We'll talk to you real soon.